Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 21st meeting of the East Hempfield Township Board of Supervisors. Tonight's meeting has been advertised to be held in person and on Zoom with login and call-in information posted on our website. The meeting will be conducted by the chairman, who will be assisted by an employee managing the Zoom site. Tonight's video and audio is being recorded and Robert's rules apply. To offer comment, you must be recognized by the chairman. For meeting participants on Zoom, please use the chat function to be recognized. Text your name and address to the moderator. Your request to speak will then be passed on by staff to the chairman to be recognized. Once recognized by the chairman, unmute your mic, and after speaking, please mute your microphone. East Hempfield Township's public comment rules will apply for all public comment. You must be a resident or business owner in the township to speak. You must identify yourself by name and address before speaking and sign the guest log for meeting minute purposes, or follow the chat procedure already discussed for Zoom attendance. Individual comment is limited to 3 minutes and must be about the agenda item being discussed, with the exception of public comment when non-agenda items can be addressed. No action will be taken on any non-agenda item of a non-emergency nature during the public comment period for non-agenda items. We will now move on to our first agenda item. Please join me for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right, it looks like our first venture into municipal government tonight is going to be a hearing for Acadia zoning text amendment. This amendment will provide for a definition of inpatient rehabilitation facilities to permit inpatient rehabilitation facilities within the enterprise zone, impose maximum building area upon inpatient rehabilitation facilities, and subject facilities to special use regulation. With that, I'll turn this over to our solicitor, Mrs. Pfeiffer.
Okay, thank you. First, I'll note that tonight's hearing has been advertised in accordance with the MPC. Second, this is a petition that has been presented by Acadia Real Estate, and a proposed ordinance is before you tonight. This is a legislative hearing, so this is an opportunity for the applicant to come forward and present their petition and support for adoption of the ordinance. It will then be a chance for you as the board members to ask the applicant questions. After that time, you should open it up for public comment to receive comments on the proposed ordinance. At the conclusion of the hearing, you can then consider adoption of the ordinance as presented. Again, this is a little bit different than a judicial hearing or quasi-judicial hearing. It is a legislative action. So again, it's a chance for the public to ask questions of the applicant. Should the applicant choose to answer those, we'll leave that up to them. But it's really just a chance to receive public comment on what is proposed. All right, so with that, I know we have counsel present, and we'll have him come up to the podium and introduce himself.
Good evening. David Schutte. I'm a partner with Troutman Pepper Hamilton Sanders LLP, and we represent Acadia Healthcare Holdings LLC and its parent company, Acadia Healthcare Company Inc., which is based in Franklin, Tennessee. With me this evening is Brett Lecklider, who's Acadia's regional vice president, and Christina Camus. Is that right? Kamau, who's the Acadia's regional director. Acadia Healthcare Company is the nation's leading provider of healthcare, behavioral healthcare services. Currently has 253 behavioral healthcare facilities in 39 states. In Pennsylvania, Acadia operates 3 acute hospitals and 11 drug and alcohol recovery facilities, including the 27-bed facility known as White Deer Run in Lancaster, which is located at 53 North West End Avenue in the city of Lancaster. Right now, Acadia Real Estate Holdings is the equitable owner of the property at 3040 Industrial Drive in East Hempfield Township. That property is 3.2 acres and is improved with a 17,320 square foot industrial building that's currently vacant. The property is located in the Enterprise Zoning District. Acadia desires to use that property on Industry Drive as an outpatient and inpatient drug and alcohol rehabilitation facility. The inpatient facility serving a maximum of 50 clients. The proposed outpatient component is already permitted by right in the Enterprise District as a professional, scientific, and technical office. With respect to the proposed inpatient facility, last probably September, October, Acadia applied for a special exception to the zoning hearing board, asserting that the proposed 50-bed facility is a use not otherwise permitted under the zoning ordinance. The zoning hearing board denied that special exception, finding that the use is permitted as a community rehabilitation facility. However, under your zoning ordinance, community rehabilitation facility, the special criteria for those limits those to serving only a maximum of 6 clients. Acadia then filed a land use appeal in January 2024, and soon thereafter, the township's attorney and I started talking about ways to resolve that matter. And since then, we've had several conversations and a handful of informal meetings to discuss Acadia's history, Acadia's other drug and alcohol rehabilitation facilities, and its proposed use and operations of the property in East Hempfield Township. One of the things that came up in those discussions is that Acadia intends to close the facility in the city of York and move the 27 clients who are currently in the city of York to the new facility if it can be operated there. Secondly, Acadia has received substantial grant monies from both the from both the county of Lancaster as well as from what's called the 5-county authority, which is 5 counties, which includes Lancaster, that helps to support drug and alcohol rehabilitation facilities and other drug and alcohol services. As a result of our communication and informal meetings on August 1st, Acadia submitted to the township a request for a text amendment. That's what's currently before you. The proposed, based upon the proposed use of Acadia as well as the well-founded comments from the township that we've incorporated into the proposed text amendment. So I'll give you a quick summary of the text amendment. Initially, it defines a new use and adds to the definition section of the zoning ordinance a term called inpatient rehabilitation facility, which is defined as a residential inpatient non-hospital facility for the short term, approximately 30 days or less, treatment or counseling for addictions and substance abuse, including but not limited to drug and alcohol. And then that inpatient rehabilitation facility, which is a new use in your zoning ordinance, will then be a use permitted by right within the enterprise zoning district. And there would also be a maximum building area for any inpatient rehabilitation facility to be 13,750 square feet. And then finally, the ordinance adds the proposed ordinance adds a new section to your zoning ordinance at section 275.2.000, which includes a number of specifically 10 criteria, special criteria that a inpatient rehabilitation facility must follow in order to receive its zoning permit and continue to operate. And those include a density requirement of no greater than 1 inpatient resident per 270 square feet of gross floor area for the portion of the buildings being used for the inpatient rehabilitation facility. That the inpatient rehabilitation facility must be constructed and managed in accordance with both DDAP, which is the Pennsylvania Department of Drug and Alcohol Programs, and its requirements, as well as any other state, local, and federal requirements that may be applicable to such a facility. Take a quick break here to tell you that these facilities are heavily regulated by DDAP, by the Department of Health, and by federal agencies such as the DEA. And they're subject to inspection by any of those agencies really at any time and without notice. Similarly, the third criteria says the operator of the inpatient facility must be licensed by DDAP and all other licensing agencies with jurisdiction over such a facility. And the township also must be notified within 14 days if any of the operator's licenses expire, are suspended, or withdrawn in any way. Because we know that safety was a big concern when we were discussing the content of this ordinance. The next two criteria, or actually the next three criteria, deal with safety and security, and that is that the facility must have a 24-hour on-site supervision by professionals trained to supervise residents of such a facility. Also, prior to the issuance of the zoning permit, a detailed description of the facility needs to be provided to the township. That needs to include the number of residents being served, the nature of the conditions that they're being served, hours of operation, number of employees for each shift, all licensing requirements, proposed plans for operation and supervision for the safety of the residents in the community, and 24-hour emergency contact information should something arise that the township, specifically any of the emergency personnel, would need to contact somebody immediately to talk about events at the facility. Sixth one is prior to the issuance of the zoning permit, the facility needs to provide to the chief of police a security plan, and then on an annual basis review that security plan based upon any events that may have happened the year before, so that can be updated regularly as events happen and as even technology changes, both among the facility and among the police department. There will be an outdoor area that will be accessed by the residents. However, under the seventh criteria, there must be a fence around that outdoor area, and it will be in accordance with the fencing requirements in your zoning ordinance. And then finally, there's 3 separation requirements. One, that the facility be at least 1,000 linear feet from any other similar facility, that the facility be at least 1,000 feet away from the closest boundary line of any school, daycare facility, camp, park, playground, or public library. And then finally, that no inpatient residential facility can be located within 500 linear feet of any residential structure. And the property that we're talking about, I think we're all aware that it's within an industrial parks, and it meets all of the criteria that we're talking about here. And Acadia is willing to meet all of the other criteria we're talking about here, and really looking forward to working in this facility. I'm here to answer any legal questions as to the ordinance itself, and Brett and Christina are here to answer any questions as to the operations of the facility, should you have any.
Mr. Schutte, just before we open it up to the board for questions, I think you misspoke. You talked about the facility in York being closed. And
No, the facility in
Lancaster, is that,
yeah,
okay?
the city of Lancaster.
All right, I think you said York, so.
That they are closing.
Okay.
There's another facility that has nothing to do with Acadia, and I believe Ephrata, that recently closed as well, which adds to the need for this type of facility in the region.
Okay.
Okay.
So does the board have questions?
Any questions from the board members?
For you.
Okay. Could you give us some idea of how great is the need for this type of facility generally, and then maybe in our area?
Right now, our facilities, both in Lebanon and Lancaster, maintain at all times at least 85%. And that we're only doing men's in the Lancaster facility. So this is going to open up our opportunity for women, which is a struggle to find treatment for these individuals. Even at 80%, that's just all the time we're maintaining 85%. We hit that max and have to then contact other facilities outside of the county, and sometimes, you know, going to northern Pennsylvania, out western Allegheny areas to find patients treatment. And it all depending on their insurance carrier. Some places won't accept your insurance, so it makes it difficult to find, where we will contract with all MCOs and providers that we can to allow them to get treatment in their hometown. But we have like waiting lists to get into our programs throughout the year. We'll try to find them treatment even if it's not with us. But there's constant struggle to find patients, and especially women.
Now, when you say you have a waiting list, are your referrals come from the community, or do you also work with the local hospitals? And
hospitals, we've gotten referrals from jail systems, and anywhere you can think, family practices, referrals come from all over. We have our own hotline that people call into that we'll get referral systems from. But again, we're getting them from your SCAs, your police departments, your hospital systems. We're getting them from all over. Parents, concerns, other people. You know, we even do drop off things at local convenience stores, and you'd be surprised how many contacts we get just by putting We Help cards out at different places. Well, we'll get a call. I picked this up at the local Sheets or something like that. So we get calls from all over.
thank you.
You had said that the Lancaster facility did not treat women. Is that correct? Why?
It would bring up the one that directly.
Or historically, Lancaster has only been a male program. It's 27 beds. It's in one house. The physical plant itself did not lend itself to be able to add women to that program.
So it was the facility that you were in, if I understand correctly, that did not allow for the treatment of women and men at the same time.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, we do have a female facility in York, so we do have one close by.
But this facility would allow for the treatment of both.
Correct.
And did I hear that there's a maximum number of inpatient residents that you've agreed to with this facility?
Yes, 50.
Okay. And the location to the nearest school or daycare playground, could you restate that again?
The requirement is 1,000 linear feet from the closest boundary of any school, daycare, facility, camp, park, playground, public library, and this facility is it complies with that requirement. Yes.
That's what I have.
Okay.
So the local paper, and I believe the New York Times had written a negative article. So I just want to give you an opportunity to address that if you choose to.
Yeah, we are aware of the New York Times article. It's a media report. I'm not really authorized on behalf of the company to address it, though I do want to point out that it dealt mainly with the acute psychiatric facilities and did not deal with the drug and alcohol facilities, which again are heavily regulated and subject to inspection by numerous government agencies for such violations, for the alleged violations, if there were any.
Thank you.
All right. Don't think we have anything more from here. Do you?
No, I don't have any other
Okay.
questions.
With that, we'll take questions from the audience. Let's start on this side of the room. Any questions of the applicant? How about this side of the room? Sure.
Patty Clark, 3337 Cochrane Drive. Would the facility accept individuals of like lower income, such as those on Medicaid, or is it just all private pay? Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, what was the answer?
Can you answer to the mic for the?
We accept Medicaid, so all forms. And if there, anytime we find an insurance, whether it's like a Blue Cross or anything, we have our own contracting department that'll work to obtain that contract so we can treat anybody. We want to be able to treat anybody that walks through our door. So we'll make an attempt to work with that insurance provider to gain that contract.
Okay. Anything on Zoom? Any questions from Zoom?
No, sir.
Okay.
A couple from maybe staff or solicitor.
Staff?
You don't have any questions?
No. And solicitor?
I don't have
No,
any other
I
questions.
do for
Oh, I'm
them.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No.
So we, if I understood correctly, this was reviewed by our planning commission?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And what was their recommendation?
They had no comment. They approved moving it forward.
Yeah, we were here last week, and the planning commission, I think it was unanimously recommended to approve the proposed ordinance.
Okay, so the planning commission recommended?
Yes.
Okay. And our solicitor has reviewed this application and worked with council, and your insight is?
Yeah, I think the ordinance as presented is fairly drafted. I think it certainly solves the issue of providing for the use within the township, but also setting up sufficient supplemental regulations to address any safety or welfare concerns within the township.
That's all.
All right. All right. Hearing no additional comment, we'll adjourn the meeting at this point.
Sure, go ahead and close the hearing.
Close the meeting at 7:24. And with that, we have an opportunity to vote or not vote, correct?
Correct. You can take action tonight to adopt the ordinance as drafted. You can defer action on this, have up until November 10th to take action on the ordinance as prepared. Now, if you are inclined to amend the ordinance, add something, delete something, we would have to evaluate that because that would require most likely re-advertising and a new hearing.
Okay.
But certainly you can decide to take action on the ordinance as it's presented tonight, or you can defer that to another meeting.
All right, backing up one step and hopefully not confusing anyone. We do want to add to the agenda this evening consideration of a new trash hauler contract. And the reason I bring it up now is that the trash bid was removed as an action item. Let's call it in error. And just want to put that back on the agenda as an action item when we get there. Okay?
Just for the record, it is on our agenda as new business, so we're not adding a whole new topic to the agenda. We're just moving it where it's located on the agenda.
But you probably want to have a motion to move it into your action items.
Right.
Just to keep it clean.
To act on it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to move the trash bid contract consideration back onto the agenda as an action item this evening.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Russell. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Wigglesworth. Motion from Mr. Russell, second from Mr. Wigglesworth. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Motion passes 4-0. Now we'll get back to the board and whether we want to take action now or wait till we get to the action area of the meeting.
I'm fine with taking action tonight, whether it's now or under the action items, whatever the rest of the board wants to do.
It really doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter?
Doesn't
Okay.
matter.
With that, let's, is there any, let's do it now. And let's, is there any comment from the board? Anything anyone would like to say one way or the other on the text amendment?
I would just add that it's something that's definitely needed in our community. It's an important service that's going to be provided. The fact that women are going to be treated in Lancaster County and close by is very important. I know there's concerned citizens about these type of facilities, but everyone wants to have a place that their loved one can go or a friend can go if needed. And it's something I think as we move forward and look at all the things that we've worked on with the applicant that we should approve.
No,
Scott?
no comment.
Okay. Well, I would just like to say, I'd like to thank Arcadia for the way they've extended themselves to our board. You came in on 2 different occasions, had meetings with our some members of the Board of Supervisors, and really, I think all of that really helped to clarify what's going on here. As the father of a nurse in Lancaster, who she attests to the fact that this is definitely a needed service in our community. So I think that, and I think having the leading name in this business here in our community will work very well for us. With that, any comment from the audience? Here, Zoom? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Let's get the Acadia zoning text amendment. Adopt ordinance number 2024-4, amending the township code to define the inpatient rehabilitation facility, permit these facilities by right in the enterprise zone, impose a maximum building area, and subject these facilities to special use regulations. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Russell. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Wigglesworth. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Okay. Thank you. Up next for consideration this evening is our consent agenda. The consent agenda addresses the approval of routine and repetitive business matters that tend to need little or no review or discussion or deliberation. Consent agenda items are provided to the board members for review in advance of our meeting. Is there any comment on the consent agenda this evening?
We have 3 board members, so I will be abstaining from voting due to the invoices.
Okay. Anything from any comment from the audience on the consent agenda? Seeing and hearing none.
I cannot do for the minutes.
Okay. So
She's got 2 promotions.
we got 2 motions. Yeah, we're good. All right. So I'll hear a motion to approve the consent agenda items A through E as presented.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Johnson. Do I hear a second? Second from Mr. Bennett. Motion from Mr. Johnson, a second from Mr. Bennett. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes 3-0 with 1 abstention. Mr. Wigglesworth. And then I'll hear a motion to approve consent agenda item F, invoices covering September the 5th through September the 18th. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Johnson, second from Mr. Bennett. Do I hear All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Motion passes 3-0-1. So we have okay, next up are our action items. And with that, we'll talk about Holland Street subdivision plan. Mrs. Schweitzer.
I think Mr. Amber is here.
Okay.
Him take over.
Good evening. Kevin Ember from Ratu. Also here tonight is Pete Stengel from Vista Block, who is the applicant. So just give you a brief refresher on this project, and for anyone who was not here back in the spring when we came with a sketch plan for the 5 Holland Street property. We are moving ahead with the land development portion of the project, which involved 2 car dealerships proposed on the property, and we had previously received a recommendation for approval of a waiver of preliminary plan. So we're currently working through that process, including potential floodplain restoration of the existing stream on site and coordinating several traffic improvements along Spooky Nook Road. So just due to the long lead time item of some of those things that would need to be coordinated for the land development process and some of the details of the sales agreement of the property, we're moving ahead to process just the subdivision piece of the property by itself as a standalone subdivision plan. So that's really what we're here to discuss tonight. So I can just give you a brief overview of kind of where we're at in that process and a couple of things we had to work with, just dealing with that as a separate subdivision plan, separate from the land development. So what is proposed is subdividing approximate 30-acre lot that has frontage technically on Holland Street. To the west side of what is shown there as Lot 2 is the end of the current public street right-of-way of Holland Street. And we're proposing to subdivide that lot, Lot 2, which with approximately 4.5 acres. And the intention of that lot would be to remain with its current use associated with Klein Services or Wind River, which operates that building there, and also some of the property to the west for their operations dealing with septic and environmental, private environmental pumping and things like that. The right side of the property would be subdivided with approximately 25 acres. And like I mentioned, the future intent there is a land development for the car dealership. But for tonight, we're just talking about the subdivision of that piece of property. So processing this as a standalone plan, there was a couple of things we had to deal with and work through with township staff. One, you can see there's 2 buildings there. What is shown in the setback of proposed Lot 1. So in order to create a compliant lot with the zoning ordinance, what we've talked about was to develop an agreement with the township and a separate financial security for potential demolition of those structures, which is the intent long-term, but really just gives protection to the township in the event that the land development would not move ahead, that you're not creating a non-compliant lot with some of the setbacks of the existing buildings. The other thing that we needed to do as part of this plan, again, just to show compliance with the zoning ordinance of having a lot that would have street frontage, is showing what is shown there in the northwest corner of that hatched area would be a new private right-of-way and access easement to essentially extend Holland Street through as a private street, so that proposed Lot 1 could have frontage to a street with a more memorialized access easement. So along with that, there's a couple waivers we're requesting, really all dealing with some dimensional aspects of that right-of-way and private street extension. As you can see, kind of in the middle of what we're showing, that access easement, there's an existing building and also some utilities. Try to turn this on here. There we go. So right in this corner here, there's a pinch point from the existing building, and there's also some utility transformer pad out here. So the one waiver is dealing with proposing a adjustment to the private right-of-way width to propose a variable width between 35 feet at the narrowest here up to 65 feet, just extending that through to the property line. And most of it would be up to 45 feet, which matches the existing Holland Street right-of-way, but it is slightly less than the township requirement, which is 50 feet. Also for the proposed roadway connection through there, again, just due to some of these dimensional constraints in that pinch point, we're proposing a minimum street width of 24 feet instead of 26 feet. And there was one additional waiver as recommended in David Miller's review letter. Instead of deferring sidewalk here, just again, because of some of these constraints and really no way to extend it further beyond this property in the future, we're also requesting a waiver of any sidewalk requirements along that private street extension. So really here tonight, we're just here to request conditional approval of the subdivision plan and those 3 waivers mentioned. We have a letter from David Miller Associates from September 6th, which mostly has comments related to those items and coordinating the agreements and typical administrative items with the township to complete the plan. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to entertain those.
Question for Perry. How do we plow Holland Street right now?
We had that question at the planning commission. So Holland Street actually ends, the public right-of-way ends at the curve in Holland Street. And there is a pull off there for snow removal. Perry, maybe you want to elaborate, but there is a ordinance that's in place that vacated that portion of Holland Street back in 2008.
Yeah, quite a while ago, we did that, and we insisted that there would be a little bit of a pull off there so we can place the snow in and actually turn around. And we just currently plow down. It essentially takes you down to the bypass and then it stops.
So where does the public right of way actually end as it look on the plans right now? So they were showing a legal right of way right up against the property line.
It ends off the plans.
What's that?
It ends off the plans.
So that's not actually a legal right of way, what we're looking on the plans right now?
Not a public right of way. It's a right of way for Klein, private right of way for Klein.
No, but I mean, the plan's labeled as a legal right of way line, which usually implies a public right of way.
Yeah, Nate, we had that conversation. You said that that was already addressed.
Yes, it's a private right-of-way that they're establishing for this.
So their easement would have to go out to the end of that private right-of-way to give them access.
No, I must be confused. So I'm looking on sheet 14 right now, the plan set. If we can flip to, and that's got the proposed road and the vertical curve. I'm sorry about this. I just got to wrap my handle around where right now the plans call out. It looks like a legal right-of-way line that ties into the Klein's property line. Is that a legal township right-of-way line? Is that where our work?
On the west side?
Yes, on the west side, right there.
I don't believe so. I think the private right-of-way extends past that line.
Okay, so that's what's saying a legal right-of-way line right now is actually a private right-of-way.
Yes.
It's not a legal right-of-way.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not a township right-of-way. There's no T number right now that's showing up on the plans there at that location.
No, actually that's misrepresented because Holland Street does stop at the curve, which isn't shown on these plans.
Okay, I'm just confused. It'd probably be good to clean that part up. It's not a legal right-of-way.
Yeah, that's something I can review with our surveyor if there's a little more research we need to do there.
We can share the ordinance with you if you don't have it.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
It sounds like you have a provision for, I was making sure that where our right-of-way stops, there's a provision for our trucks to turn around. And it sounds like there is.
There is.
It's just off the plan set right now.
Correct.
And we just need to correct the plan set to reflect that that's a private right-of-way.
Yes.
Okay, I'm good now.
Thank you.
That's it.
Anyone else on the board?
Yeah, on that September 6th, David Miller letter on the waivers and modifications, it had some assumptions or recommendations that was granted with conditions that a letter be provided. You're complying with all those conditions on that letter?
Yeah, that was the one additional item I mentioned regarding the sidewalks, that they were recommending a waiver rather than a deferral of the sidewalk, so we can coordinate with David Miller on that item.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, there was an item 1 and an item 2, and they both had recommendations that they were requesting things. So is that your intentions to comply with that recommendation?
Yep, we have no issue with addressing this.
Okay, thank you.
Anything, Scott?
I have nothing.
Okay, staff, anything from staff? No. Anything from the audience on this plan? Or Zoom? No. Okay. Hearing nothing additional, I'll hear a motion to conditionally approve modification and waiver requests number 1 and 2 for the 5 Holland Street project, Township File 24-05.02, subject to all staff and engineering review. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Johnson, second from Mr. Bennett. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes 4-0. And then on the subdivision plan itself, a motion to approve subdivision plan for the 5 Holland Street project, Township File 24-04.02, subject to all staff and engineering comments. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Russell, second from Mr. Wigglesworth. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes 4-0. You bet. Thank you. Okay, next up on our action item list is a Barcrest apartment floodplain restoration to the township's pollutant reduction plan, MS4 permit. Mrs. Schweitzer.
So the Blue and Green Corridor, which is the Steinman Foundation project, has asked us if we would be interested in amending our PRP, our pollution reduction plan, to include the Barcrest project that they have just recently finished. That gives us another 25,000 pounds of sediment reduction for our overall MS4 permit. We don't necessarily need the 25,000, but it is part of something that the township paid for when the project was started. Each of the municipalities chipped in 75,000, and we're guaranteed 25,000 pounds of sediment reduction, which is what they're doing. We had our engineer take a look at it. She said it's very minimal change to our current permit and recommended that we move forward with it. What you have before you is no action necessary, but it is just to notify the public that it is open for a 30-day public comment period, which will end beginning of October. And so we'll be on your agenda for an action item at that point.
We'll post this on our website somewhere.
It's been on the website since September, beginning of September.
Okay.
And we might not need it for this permit cycle, but we can bank it for the next one.
Yes.
So there's this is absolutely a win-win.
Awesome. All right, very good. Let's for now, let's just skip over the trash bid and move on to Old Roarstown Road Bridge Project.
So unfortunately, we're about a month shy of completing this project, but we are dealing with an amendment, which is number 5 to the agreement with PennDOT and the township, which explains all the costs that are involved. And of course, the costs have increased. We need a change. We need an amendment to the agreement, which is what this is doing for us. And it's increasing the project to $4,422,000. I have to say it started in 2013 and the cost then was 2.2. So costs have significantly increased. But it's just an action item of the board, a resolution that authorizes signature on this Fifth Amendment, which increases the cost for this project. This project is funded through federal, state, and local funding. The township is responsible for 2.5% of this, which is about $110,000.
And this has been obviously reviewed by PennDOT, who's paying 95% of the bill.
Yes, this came from PennDOT, yes. Mm-hmm. And it's a requirement of the grants.
Right, and we really don't have much of a choice but to pay the increase anyways. And they reviewed it and they've already agreed to the costs are appropriate because of all the delays we've had with the railroad and other issues that we've dealt with over the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. And if they're good with it, I'm good with it.
Anything else from the board on this one?
No.
How about the audience? Anything from the audience? Okay, hearing none. On the Old Rohrstown Road Bridge Project, a motion to authorize signature on addendum number 5 to the agreement between PennDOT and the township to account for added construction cost and to adopt resolution 2024-14 authorizing a signature on the addendum. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Motion from Mr. Russell. Do I hear a second? Second from Mr. Wigglesworth. Motion from Mr. Russell, second from Mr. Wigglesworth. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Next up, we have our employee manual update from Mrs. Schweitzer.
So the last time we updated the manual was in 2016. General policies change as we move through time, and that's what this is doing. It doesn't add benefits to the employees. It's simply the same type of benefit, but it does change policies such as ADA. The remote work policy is now in there. The CDL policy has changed. FMLA leave is changed to current standards. Workers' compensation policy is updated. This has been reviewed by the admin finance group. They've had it for about a month and a half. And it also was prepared by our attorney. So it's been fully reviewed.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
No.
Yeah.
Just a question. Was there any particular law change that precipitated you doing it now, or is this just something that you do every X years?
We typically do it every couple of years just to keep us current.
Thank you.
Did Finance and Admin Committee review it?
Yes, we did.
We did.
No, we had no comments at this point. And mostly minor changes.
Yeah, and a good idea of what the drivers were for the updates. Okay. All right, anything from the audience? Hearing none, I'll hear a motion to adopt the revised employee manual as presented.
So move.
Motion from Mr. Russell. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Johnson. Motion from Mr. Russell, second from Mr. Johnson. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Next up, minimum municipal obligation for our municipal pension program.
So this is something that we are required to do by the state, and it has to occur in September. And it tells the state what our obligation is to our pension plans. I did give you a revised version today because we got the revised numbers from the state regarding what our financial aid will be. And that went up about $100,000. So we estimate that the state aid coming in for next year will be $648,000. And the net cost to the township will be $256,774, which is lower than the previous year. Our plans as of 1/1/23 actuary reports, the police fund is funded by 87% and the non-uniform is at 97%.
And financially, if you know, how does that compare to other municipalities around the county and the state?
I don't know.
Just because this is good news, do you remember what the percent funded for the non-uniform and uniform is off the top of your head?
What percent funded?
Yeah,
97.
97 for police or 97 for non-uniform?
Non-uniform is 97, 87 is police.
Right.
As of 1/1/23.
And anything above 80% is considered to be a sound
Yes,
pension plan at this point.
yes, not in distress.
And a decade ago, our plan was below 70%, roughly.
Yeah, yes.
We've, over the last decade, have spent a lot of extra money catching up, and now we're at the point where we can kind of reap the benefits of that catch up. This is good news.
Yep.
Yeah, my question was, I think you deserve some kudos because I don't think there's many townships that are in this good a position.
It's based on our Gerard, who we use for our pension plan. And their investment strategies have been very well received.
And the fact that in past years, we also put an extra $200,000 a year into our plan above and beyond the minimal municipal obligation.
The police department,
requirements,
yes.
Which caught us back up and got us into a much more financially sound position with our pension plans, and the changes we also made by making the changes on the non-uniform have all contributed to really putting the township in a very sound position for pension and retirement.
Scott's correct. That extra money that we've been putting in is valuable. Yeah, I would also say that our pension advisor, and who is that?
Gerard.
Gerard, yes. Give them a little advertising. Has done a great job in terms of balancing things out and getting us into the right funds at the right time. So a lot of things happening there correctly. All right. Any other comment from the board on?
No, it's great. It's great news and should be highlighted. It's really, really, really good news.
Anything from the audience? Okay, hearing none, I'll hear a motion to accept the calculated MMO for funding the 2025 township pension plans as presented.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Wigglesworth. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Russell. Motion from Mr. Wigglesworth. Second from Mr. Russell. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Next up, we have Indian Springs Green Infrastructure Planning Grant submission to the local share account funding source. We're requesting $40,000 with a $5,000 match for planning grant submission.
We had submitted the same grant to National Fish and Wildlife and did not receive the grant. So we turned around and the LSA grant opened up for a possibility. So our engineer simply changed some information and it's ready to be submitted for the LSA. It's a statewide program. Hopefully we get some funding from it, but what it is doing is a planning grant to look at the Indian Springs area and that stormwater retention area behind the homes in that area. We're not quite sure what it looks like. That's what we need to plan, but that's generally what it's for, which will help the golf course as well.
And all you're looking for is an approval to move forward on that.
An approval to submit and fund it by $5,000.
Okay.
That would probably be our most challenging stormwater project to date.
Yes.
When you talk about 40+ properties.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any questions? Any additional questions from the board?
None.
Okay. Hearing none, anything from the audience? Nothing from the audience. Okay, with that, I'll hear a motion to authorize staff to submit the grant request and commit the township to $5,000 as a match to the $45,000 request.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Johnson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Russell. Motion from Mr. Johnson, second from Mr. Russell. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Do we have any? Okay, we're gonna move now to the trash recycling situation that we have here. We recently had a bid opening for trash and recycling for beginning in January of 2025. We had 3 bids, Casella, Republic, and Goods. The unit price that we pay right now is currently $141 a year, which there were 2 options were bid, an automated and a non-automated. We currently have a non-automated process. The low bid for the automated process is Republic at $258 a year. The low bid for a non-automated process is Casella at $234.93 per year. The discussion and the discussion is going to revolve around whether or not we want to move on to an automated process. And by automated, we mean everyone will have containers. The truck will come by, pick up the containers, put them in the, dump the trash in the truck automatically without any additional labor cost to the provider. And the non-automated process will be similar to what we have today. Anything Mrs. Schweitzer would like to add?
The only thing I would add, it's a 5-year contract with 2 extensions. And both options include the call center being handled now by the hauler as opposed to the township.
And how many, again, we've kind of gone through a drill we had when we did finance admin. How many units are we talking about, customers?
7,800, give or take.
All right.
And just a point of clarification too, the current Casella unit price is $141. And what you're looking at is the 234 and the 258. That's not the cost to a resident. The cost to a resident is higher, currently at 288 a year, because we also add on the tipping fees and the extra collections that we have in terms of leaves and administrative costs.
So the 141 turns into 288.
Correct.
Right. Which is about 117?
47, 147.
147, yeah, it pretty much doubles.
Yeah.
So generally, as I look at this, we'd be looking at either one of these bids plus 147 to sort of keep things going the way they have been going from a tipping fee standpoint and a leaf collection process, right?
Don't hold me to those numbers, but
No,
yes, generally,
yeah, this is
that's what we're looking at. Yes.
the only numbers that we have before us are the bid numbers, the base bid numbers. But I just want everybody to know that there's going to be something on top of that, having to do with tipping fees and leaf collection and maybe some other administrative costs. There is the differences on the alternate bid for Republic is that there are some additional services that they are going to provide, correct?
That is the Casella. The Casella bid is not automated.
Right.
But a conversation with the hauler indicated that they would be willing to provide carts on a non-mandatory basis. I'm not sure how that would work with the tag system and working out the details. But that was their offer. There would be no change to price. We're still looking at the same pricing.
Right.
Would the residents have to pay for the cart, I'm assuming?
No.
They would give them the cart as well?
Yes, for those that want it.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Kratzer? Kreitzer is here representing Casella. And Andy Wentz is also here representing Republic, as well as Jay Enoch. If you have any questions that you wanted to direct to them. Yeah.
Andy also would like to speak.
So I'm Jonas Kreitzer with Casella, and just a couple of highlights of the two bids. Of course, the big one is price, and unfortunately, it is a big price increase, as you were probably expecting. Everyone's had big price increases, and this is in line with what we've seen in other communities. But just a couple of highlights. Number one, if you were to multiply out the price increase for all the residents, we're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of about $180,000 per year. Over the 5 years, it's a little bit more than $900,000 additional to go with the automated alternate bid 2. Over the full 5-year plus extensions, it's somewhere north of 1.3 million addition in it, above what you would pay for alternate bid 1 for Casella. And a couple of things, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cindy, but there are a couple of restrictions on the automated bid that are not restricted on the base bid that Casella submitted. One is that residents would be limited to trash that could fit into that container and recycling that could fit into that container. Very often there are bags, extra bags, boxes that are included in the current system when it's collected manually. That's taken, as we just generally do not leave trash behind. So if residents were to have a get together, or large families who on a regular basis just produce more than that 96 gallon, they're going to need to find some other way to get rid of that trash under the automated system. The second change is that yard waste will no longer be collected. Yard waste is included April through October once a week on the Casella bid, but there is no provision, if I'm correct, on the automated bid for.
No, that's not correct.
Okay, that's not listed on the services, unless I missed it on there. It was not listed on the bid sheet.
The intent was that they would be listed because they're mandated to collect. I'd have to go back and check the bid docs.
Now, Cindy had made mention of, for those that do want to have the large container, you had indicated that you'd make provisions for that?
Yeah, for residents who would request, and we've done this in a number of other municipalities, for residents who request it, we do provide those containers. One of the largest problem that I see municipalities face when they convert to automated is there's always residents who just don't want them. They don't have the space. They don't want to be limited. Whatever reason, they just don't want to be wheeling them in and out every week. So it's not uncommon for us in those communities to go, all right, the residents who really want the containers, we'll give them containers. The ones who are explicitly requesting them, we'll provide them. Then you don't have to worry about the, several hundred in a community this size, I would expect, are not going to want them. They're not going to want that change. And you would not have to deal with that under the base bid, alternate bid number 1.
And again, you would provide those containers free. That would be included in the bid.
That's correct. It was not requested in the bid, but it's something that we could add.
Quick question for you in your belief in the future, is it going to be headed at some point to all automated down the road?
In most communities, yes, but there's always, there's communities where it's just never going to happen because of the layout. And one of the points that I made to Cindy was that if that's the intent somewhere down the road, the proposal that we're offering is a way to step into that without a whole lot of disruption.
Thank you.
Question.
Yes.
So is alternate 1 bid the same as what you're providing today? I mean, you were just describing containers, but I'm not familiar with those.
Generally, yes. On the specifics, Cindy, can you speak to any changes from the current contract?
I'm sorry, I was looking at the bid documents.
The proposal under alternate bid 1,
Mm-hmm.
are there any changes from the current contract?
The call center.
Oh, right.
That would be the only thing from what's currently
So on the
happening.
on the service side, everything's the same.
Yes.
Okay, but currently you're not providing containers.
That's correct.
Okay, but in the future, under alternate one bid, you would be providing containers that someone would physically pick up and dump?
Yes.
Okay. And how large, or what, let me step back. Like, would that be the standard thing? Like, instead of me bringing bags out, you would be bringing a container out?
That's correct, yes. So in the industry, there's generally 3 standard sizes: 32 gallon, 64, 65 gallon, and 96 gallon. So those would be the sizes that would be available.
Okay. At the discretion of the homeowner, you're saying? Okay.
He is correct. The alternate 2 does not include yard waste pickup, which is problematic.
Mr. Chairman, Andy Warrants from Republic has asked to address the board as well.
Okay.
Andy, you should be able to unmute. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not there tonight. I was told that this was not going to be decided upon tonight, so I'm calling in from my house. Several things. We did price it to have yard waste, Cindy, so I don't know where the difference is on the bulk and white goods, that it's once a month and they don't have to go pick up buy tags from the township. It's just included is the way that was laid up. So there is differences other than just the carts. I do have issue with Casella saying that they're just going to provide carts for free, because if that's the case, then why was their bid on alternate 2 higher? If you were just going to give carts for free, you would think that the price for both options would be the same. So to change after a bid where that wasn't part of it, that we're going to go base bid, but we can give carts if we want to, it doesn't seem fair because that's not the way the bid was laid out. That's changing how you're going to provide service after the fact. So that's a little bit challenging to hear that that's acceptable. The push to automation is very clearly to us for the safety of our employees. When we have helpers on the back of trucks, bad things can happen. There's fatalities all over the country all the time. We had one in November down in Texas where a helper was on the back of a truck in a township similar to yours. A distracted driver came up, slammed in, killed the person instantly. That's why we're pushing to get to automated work, because we don't want people hanging on the back of trucks. Besides that, when you have a helper on the back of the truck and they're picking up bags of trash all day, which, in your township, each route probably goes anywhere between 8 and 10 tons a day that those helpers are picking up. I mean, it's a lot of weight and a lot of injuries happen, which is why we're moving to go to automation wherever we possibly can. So the other benefit to automation is it cleans up your neighborhoods. You have carts that have lids that are attached to them, so you don't have trash cans blowing around the street. On a windy day, you don't have a 14-gallon recycling bin that blew over and now bottles are going all up and down the street. So there is a benefit too for the way it looks for the municipality. And when you go to a 64-gallon cart for recycling instead of the small bin, it affords more space for recycling. So it should help increase your recycling numbers, which then could lead to increased grant money. So on the 2 different options, it's not just about the cart. It's also, the bulk white good is different because they don't have to buy tags. So the residents don't have to go to the township office. They don't have to buy the tags to put on those bulk goods or white goods. Again, I wish that I had been able to be there in person to present to you, but with the last minute change, here I am. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. I mean, we did provide some carts there because what Mr. Kreitzer said about some people don't want them because they can't handle the large cart. That's why we have 35-gallon carts that we can provide to older citizens who might not generate as much trash or just can't move the big cart. We do West Donegal Township, and part of that is Masonic Village. And so a lot of those townhouses in Masonic Village went with 35-gallon carts because they didn't have the space, or just because they don't generate as much trash because they go up to the dining hall every night. So there is precedent that we provide those smaller carts to people who don't need the larger one or can't handle it. So there is that option as well.
So the bid documents, if you go into the wording in the bids, it does include it in alternate 2 in terms of the yard waste. It's
Yes.
listed in the bid form, guess you would say. And Mr. Worth is correct. There is an added benefit to residents. They will now, on option 2, get white goods and large items picked up once a week or once a month, as opposed
without having to buy tags.
Right. It's a phone call to the hauler, as opposed to the current system now, which requires a resident to come in and get tags. And the white goods is twice a year, and the extra trash, large trash, is 2 per pickup.
And to the point, to one last point on the extra trash, that it's cart contents only is true, but if residents have extra, they can still buy those extra tags. And in that case, we dump the cart, get out, pick up the extra tagged bags, throw them in the cart and dump it. So I would think that's how it's done now. I wouldn't think that they just pick it up an unlimited amount of trash since the township pays disposal. It seems like they would need to still have extra tags on either service. They don't just get unlimited trash on option 1.
Just a quick question. If I'm reading this chart right, you did not put in a bid for alternate 1, is that correct?
That's correct, because we're not bidding on work that we cannot automate as a company. Yeah, that's our stance. Understood. It wasn't required to bid on both. It was, you could bid on both or just one.
Gotcha. Okay.
Similar to how I think Goods only bid on option 1. They didn't bid on the automated option.
I think that's all I had. I do remember we went through this last time, and I was shocked because I was actually for moving to the automated system. I thought it was cleaner. However, I was surprised to see we had resident turnout, and it was almost 7 or 8 to 1 wanting to keep it the way that it is. And it was a significant turnout. I just throw that out. Just that's my recollection for the board when we did this in the past. And with that, if we are going to make a change that's going to be this, I don't think we should do it tonight without publicizing it and letting the residents know that this is coming without them having their say. Because I have a suspicion that we're going to get a lot of what we got last time.
Scott?
For me, it's a bottom line discussion at this point. Just over 3 years, we're talking $500,000. I mean, I'm assuming that at some point automated will become cheaper. But until that point happens, I think it's a pretty black and white issue for me in terms of going for the service that costs less. For the residents that do want to have a single trash can and picked up that way, that's an option. For the majority of the residents that probably want to just keep things the way it is, it's a cheaper option right now. And the call center going away is going to take away the biggest headache that the township currently has, as I understand it. So we'll still have to do the oversized tags with the for the base bid, which we wouldn't have to do with the automated bid. But for me, it's just pretty simple. We just keep things the way they are because that's a cheaper option.
Well, you know, for me, I think we need to have a little bit more discussion with both haulers. Because there seems to be some question about some aspects of the program and what's being offered. You know, I don't necessarily like the fact that one of the bidders was not here tonight, and one was, and when we put this back onto the agenda, I thought both would be here. So I'd be in favor of agreeing with Scott and let's just keep this open until our next meeting. And again, it'll also provide an opportunity for residents to weigh in on the program that both have to offer.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Is there any rush?
Right, I'm fine with that. I do have a couple questions though.
There's a sense of urgency for the haulers. If it's Casella, they pretty much have the trucks that are necessary. If it's Republic, they do have to build their fleet to accommodate us. We are a very large account. So the sooner the better.
Can we? Well, I mean, I think, as Tom just said, I think Republic, I think, has a concern that he didn't think we were acting on it tonight, right?
Correct. They both didn't, just happens one was here.
Right. So I'm with Tom. I don't feel comfortable acting on it if they were caught off guard and wanted to be here. I'd like to at least afford everybody that opportunity. I do, you know, keep in mind what I just said, I think echoes what Scott said. I just think it looks better. It gives the residents a chance to weigh in if we wait one more meeting. Hopefully that's not going to hurt anyone by doing that, and it gives the residents a chance to have their voices heard.
Mr. Warrens has indicated by text that does not have a problem waiting for a decision for 2 additional weeks.
Yeah, and I just asked that we make sure it's clear to the residents that the only difference is not just the carts. Like, that's not the only difference. There is different service levels, especially at the bulk and Micah, that they need to be aware of, that they don't have to go to the township anymore to buy tags. So, like, if it's only about the carts, then maybe it's one way. But as long as they're getting all the info of the 2 different service levels, I think that's important as well when you send out your information to your residents.
I don't have any problem with tabling. The whole idea of moving this forward was because of the timeline. They were requesting a meeting with admin finance. I didn't have the ability to meet for next week. And so this was just to expedite the process, to get a discussion. Tom and I were talking about moving to an action item. We anticipate it might go to being tabled.
So yeah, so at this point, I you know, because we put it back on as an action item, I'm going to make a motion to table the vote on this. Okay, I'm sorry, Bob.
Yeah, my 2 questions are, for yard waste, is the alternate 1 bid and alternate 2 bid, and this was probably mentioned, but I missed it. Are they the same? Is it both, in both cases, it's free to get rid of yard waste?
Not free, included in the price.
Yeah. Okay, no, okay. It's not like, in neither case do you need to get tags or anything, as long as you have them out in those
For yard
special
waste,
bags.
no, there's no tags needed, and you can use any bag.
Okay. And then my second question is, you know, I hadn't realized before that Casella was providing what I called bins or cans, but I guess that's what we're calling carts. That's what a cart is.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so that's a change, but it feels like to me, bid 1 and bid 2, as far as like the consumer is concerned, in both cases, they're bringing something to the curb, and how it actually gets into the truck is what's different between 1 and 2. Would that be true?
In terms of the cart pickup, yes, but then there's other sections of the program, like tags, is different in both option 1 and 2.
So to be fair to both sides, as we have been throwing costs as an issue, could you bring for our next meeting what our tag costs are. We should have a number, like what were the number of tags that were picked up over the last year for bulk goods, so we can
give you
have a true apple-to-apple comparison between the costs at this point.
Yeah, that's interesting because it could end up being very close. Okay, yep, I'm good, thank you.
Good, okay. So at this point then, I'm gonna move to table this item, so I'll, sure.
Couple clarifications. John Chester's 1505 Nisley Road. So currently the residents are paying 141 and change. Is that correct?
No, the residents are paying 288 per year. There is a discount if you pay for the whole year, but it's 288.
Option one, what would be the price for the resident?
We don't know yet. We haven't developed that budget.
So even that 234, but there's administrative fees and someone to add to that.
You're assuming another $117, I believe you thought.
47. Right now, there's $147 above the 141 that is added to that.
And there, just to let you know what those additional costs are, it's your leaf pickup and street sweeping are also in our trash fund.
Okay, so it's 234 plus 147. And then when it comes to the bid two, it's 258 plus
the 147.
147, okay.
As a placeholder.
And again, that's just a rough figure. It's a 5-year contract?
Yes.
Okay. Now that price is, when they talked about 2 extensions, what does it 2 extensions mean?
It's a 5-year contract, but there are inflators embedded in the bid contract. So year 2 could be higher, likely will be higher.
Because I realize tipping
inflation,
fees are constantly
yes,
going up and we have nothing any control.
Right.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Warrants has asked to address you again.
Go ahead.
I would think that the 147 is probably a good holding spot, like you said, but with decreased admin because of not taking the calls from residents, I would think that part of that 147 isn't just all disposal. I would think part of that's also the cost of your employees that answer phones.
Okay. All right. That's a good point. That's also a point that you can make again at our next meeting when we hopefully decide on this. We're not going to decide tonight. I'm going to propose that we table it. I'll hear a motion to table for now.
Patty Clark. I had a question for Mr. Warrants. I was just for the frequency of the yard waste pickup. Would that be weekly as part of the contract? I thought I heard him say once a month,
but no, the yard waste is the same as both services. It's once a week, April 1st through October 31st. So that's the same on both options.
Okay, and then how is that picked up then with an automated process?
That's not automated. We use a stake body truck to pick that up. So that's not automated. We don't provide carts for yard waste. We just pick up the brown bags.
Okay, so you would have a person that would come out of the truck and pick that up by hand?
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
Okay. And I mean, I may be at the meeting when you take public comment on the different options, but I mean, I tend to favor the process we have now with it being hand picked up. Mainly, I think the large carts, some of the people in our neighborhood do have the large carts already just because they want to, and they're fine when they're full, but once they're empty, especially on windy days, they do tend to blow down the street. And I think a lot of the streets in the township are not truly like 2 lanes. They're not that wide, and you have the carts blowing around. It causes problems with mail delivery, with the postal service coming in and out, and with traffic when there's carts laying, because they tend to end up in the street a lot of the time. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Thank you. So you have a stake in this, huh?
So I think you made a motion to table. Is that correct, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman?
Yes.
So I move a motion.
Motion from Mr. Russell. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Johnson. Motion from Mr. Russell, second from Mr. Johnson. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. And where are we here? We are now at the Traffic Commission summary tonight. Let me get to that. All right, we met at 6 o'clock tonight where we addressed traffic report provided by the chief. We discussed speed studies that were done. And here we go. Traffic report speed studies on Gloucester, Farmingdale, and Stony Battery, along with Split Road. And then we also discussed the removal of, or the milling of speed bumps on Farmingdale. We decided not to change anything there at this point, recognizing that we haven't had really any complaints from residents or any issues. We don't have any problems there. I guess that was about it.
The 2-lane intersection,
Oh.
we moved the stop sign and put a curb.
Okay, on Wilson, we had a 2-lane intersection that we're trying to straighten out for the Friends Quakers Church there. And we're working with them on sort of a realignment there to make the crossing of that road safer. That's about it. Okay. Next up, we'll have public comment. Any public comment this evening? No one in the audience?
No.
How about on Zoom?
No one.
Nothing on Zoom? Okay, then we'll go to manager report.
Diane, do you have anything for Centerville?
Not specifically, no.
Okay.
Let's
move along.
Progressing. Yep.
Yeah. 2025, so. Old Orangetown Road, as we indicated earlier, it's about winding down. It said probably at the end of October, so that should be finished. The Farmingdale Road project, we're still working with our engineer to get the closing documents that we need for the grant reimbursement. The zoning hearing board will be meeting tomorrow evening to hear the Colebrook Validity Challenge. That's at 7 p.m. Route 72 in Lidditz, we're waiting for, our permit has been issued from PennDOT for Route 72 in Lidditz, and we're still waiting for our engineer to work on the bid documents and the rights of way. The Aher Phase 2 low bar, our contractor, has moved over to the bocce courts. The new pavilion on the east side of the park is now completed. The parking lot will be scheduled for November completion, which is on the west side.
Excuse me, Cindy, is that usable? Are people actually using that pavilion yet?
We have not yet closed it out. There's still some punch list items. So we haven't put the tables in, but people can go underneath it and kind of sit in the concrete.
Okay.
We have not decided to rent it this year. We'll start renting it next year.
Okay.
Jacobs Creek Park, that equipment should be installed by now. I know that the contractor was working on it. Noldora Park, we have noted for quite some time that project is short funds, and we continue to work on possible grants to meet that difference. We are working on a low bar bid, so we know exactly what that cost number will be. We talked about trash and recycling, the PRP, Old Orangetown Road, Emmanuel, the MMO, Traffic Commission. Dorcia Drive, that project is finished. So those residents seem to appear happy with that drainage project. We did have an admin finance group meeting.
Excuse me, but as a member of the Stormwater Committee, that was the first thing I worked on. So I feel good that that's done and residents are happy. That's
positive.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to drive up and take a look.
Yeah, I drove there today and you almost have to walk down in because it really isn't obvious, which is good because they didn't want it to be a blank slate. So Admin Finance did have their meeting in September. We talked about the audit, which is coming to a close. We talked about the budget status, which you should be getting information in the coming weeks. The trash bid results. International dump truck. We've had a dump truck ordered probably over a year. It's hopefully going to be here in November. It's a recommendation of the committee to pay cash for that because of the high interest rates for leasing. And we have sufficient funds in our cash balance to handle that. They talked about the employee manual, the church and Nolt Park, and looking at some funding solution firms that might be able to promote that park into getting something accomplished. And we also talked about the Noldora Park. So that concludes my Park and Rec also met to reemphasize the Knowlton Church Street direction, and they also agreed with that direction. So we are discussing quotes from those funding solution firms to move forward.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions for Cindy? Any questions from the audience?
I had a question, Cindy. When you mentioned about the Church Nolt Park and what about the funding? You said funding solution firms. What does that mean?
So there's been discussion with two firms that specialize in looking for funding for large projects such as this. And we're looking at several $1 million worth of grants. And to get those grants, you need a company that specializes with lobbyists to talk to the legislators to get that money.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, it doesn't appear that there's anything else. So I'll adjourn the meeting at 8:34.
I heard you guys set the record last time.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think
Wish it was long,
19
please, though. It was
minutes.
cold today.